Hi, I'm John Messer. I'm the Regional Executive for the Regional Synod of the Great Lakes, and I'm the Leadership Development Catalyst for Luminix. Today is the last day on systems thinking, a 5-part series. And so I encourage you to see the rest of the series. If you haven't seen it, it'll make a lot more sense for today. But today we're going to talk about, so how do we kind of bring all of this together, and how do we as church leaders lean into being systems thinkers? And so I'm going to give some suggestions that will help us realize the difference between linear thinking, kind of the quick fix mentality, and systems thinking. So number one, we definitely need to see the whole. Although we are concerned with parts, just like we're concerned with anything that has parts to it, we need to realize that the parts do not define the system. The system defines the parts. And so we know that biblically speaking, Paul tells us that the church is like a body composed of different parts. But we don't just focus on the individual parts, we focus on the body, we focus on the system. And the church as a system is like a body composed of various parts. And so I challenge you as church leaders to not get stuck into this component thinking where we focus on one little bit and another little bit and then try to fix that bit and this bit. See the entire church as a system, recognizing that every change changes everything in that church system. So that's number one. Number two, look for the connections in your church system. In other words, we're talking about variables. You're having trouble with attendance. Well, what has attendance been doing? Has attendance been declining? Draw a bot graph. Just draw a little chart. And as attendance declines, what else has been happening? Well, it may be that people are leaving your community. Or it may be that you changed the worship service and attendance started going down. But look for the variables and then define the relationships between those variables. And you may have multiple variables at first, and what you want to do is narrow those down to the most essential 3 to 5 variables and then graph those. And it may take multiple tries to be able to find those, but do that. That process helps you clarify your thinking on what's really going on here. Define the positive or negative relationships between the variables. Another thing to do is always look at your church system from different perspectives. Rather than only looking at it from the perspective of a senior leader or as an elder or a pastor, try looking at your church system from a teenager's perspective. Try looking at your church system from a first-time visitor's perspective. Try looking at it as from the perspective of a 65 plus, as a 20-something or a 30-something. Putting yourself in the place to see from different perspectives is a key systems thinking skill, and it will make a huge difference in your leadership. You also want to surface and challenge your mental models. Now remember, we talked about those that are subconscious mental maps of how things work. You have a mental map as a pastor or an elder or a church leader. You have a mental map of what a church is and what it should do. You also have a mental map of what a church leader is and what they should do and shouldn't do. The problem is that your mental maps will be very different from someone else's mental maps. And to work together as a church leadership team, you need to come to some sort of alignment between your mental models. Because most of the church problems that you encounter are not that the person is against you, and it's not that you have to blame somebody. Most of the problems that you're dealing with are a result of the differing mental models that you have. And so you have to surface those mental models and then deal with them and try to bring alignment between those models in order to have a common vision and a common mission. You also want to learn to look for changes over time. In other words, like we talked about last time, you're looking for delays. Where is it that we have implemented a new policy and what consequences came? It may not have been immediate, but what consequences came of that new policy? What changed when we changed our worship service? What changed when we added this new program? Or when we took away this or added that? What changed? Looking for those consequences, looking for the outcomes, is actually key systems thinking because you're looking for the feedback based on your actions. And that's systems thinking at work. Also, one of the keys for any church leader is to see yourself as part of the system. You are not separate or distinct from the system. You are an integral part of any church system. And what you do, what you choose not to do, impacts that entire system. Remember, every change changes everything. Well, that means you too. What you do impacts the entire system. So when you think about that, realize that your actions or your inactions, your choices have impact on that entire system. What will those impacts be? Will they be intentional, or will there be unintentional, unintended consequences? It's a great way to think, because if you can anticipate the unintended consequences that might come from your action, or from a policy change, or from a program change, you can be way ahead and be proactive about creating healthy and effective ministry structures. And finally, learn to practice ambiguity. In this day and age, it's a key skill. We must realize that dealing with systems is not clear. It's not black and white. There's volatility and uncertainty and complexity, and there's ambiguity everywhere. Learning to live in the tension of ambiguity, of not knowing exactly what's going on all the time, is a key systems thinking skill. You can learn to deal in that system and to find patterns within the chaos. You can learn to bring clarity from ambiguity, but that's a system skill that we have to apply. But as you do that, you will find that your church not only becomes healthier and more effective, but you become healthier and more effective. And you'll avoid being burned out. You'll avoid taking responsibility for things that aren't yours to be responsible for. And you'll realize that God's purposes and plans can be worked out through the church as a system as Christ intended. So, I would love to talk with you more about this topic. If you want to learn more about church as a system and how we lead church systems, I would love to talk with you. I would love to come and share with you, to train you. But look for the handout on this website. And I'm looking forward to hearing back from you about church systems and leading the church as a system. Thanks for paying attention. Thanks for being here with me. I'll see you next time. Bye.